get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down. Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down.
Shout out Young Swish.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Sit Down Morning Show with Malik Wright. I'm your host, Malik Wright. Joining my co-host, as always, my main man, my best friend, Daniel Alameda, and my guy, Tim, is back in the building. Tim, you were away from us for a while, man. And part of that was by design, right? Because Daniel and I had the bright idea to go on and get sick, get COVID, and all that kind of stuff.
Now shit happens, man.
Now we're back. We're back. We're feeling okay. Obviously, before we jump into the show like we usually do, NFL world was rocked by news today that Cowboys defensive end Marshawn Kneeland has tragically passed away at the age of 24. Our entire thoughts, prayers go out to the entire Cowboys organization. Such a young age. Life is precious. So hug yours that are close to you, and we'll begin the show. So the trade deadline was very, very interesting, I would say. The trade deadline, you had a lot happening. You had a lot of teams that were going out there and making moves. Some teams stood pat. We're going to talk about some of those teams on the show today. We're going to talk about teams that were winners. We're going to talk about teams that were losers. But, you know, one of the biggest storylines that are, or I should say that aren't coming out of this week is Jayden Daniels, guys.
Yeah.
Jayden Daniels goes down. They were in a blowout loss. He goes down, fractures his arm, I believe it was. Left arm, non-throwing shoulder, or throwing arm.
Dislocated elbow, yeah.
Dislocated elbow, yeah. And you have people automatically starting to bring up the name RG3. You have people talking about how his career turned out. Obviously, RG3 was a rookie with so much promise. He took the NFL by storm, did great things, and we all know how that sort of played out.
Yeah,
I think it's a little bit too soon to make those type of accusations. However, it is a little bit of alarming when you see Jayden Daniels go to the locker room almost every single game, or go to the medical tent every single game. Yeah. I don't know if it's playing style. I don't know if got to put on more weight. I don't know what it is. And this is a guy Daniel's been covering since college, right? Mm-hmm. But I want to get you guys just overall thoughts on the future of Jayden Daniels. Is there any concern on you guys' end for the future of Jayden Daniels? Tim, let's start with you.
I think you have to protect Jayden Daniels from himself. I think you could learn from the RG3 situation in the thinking of long-term future. You know, at this point with Jayden, one thing he does, and that has been kind of a catalyst for his game, is the fact that he's able to maneuver in the pocket. He's able to extend plays. He's a scrambler. He's a talented thrower of the football, but you have to protect him from himself. One thing that, you know, Washington did with RG3 was gave him the benefit of the doubt. You know, you let players play, but sometimes you have to think about, we don't know what RG3 could have been. I know he was on a great trajectory, but at this point, Jayden Daniels already missed 3 games this year with injuries. The knee sprain, the hamstring against the Cowboys. So now you're at the point where the offense is decimated as is across the board as far as the wide receiving core. Your number 1 running back was out. You know, you found something good with 𝗪𝗏𝗪, but I think now is the time for Washington to look at the depth pieces and see who's valuable to the team. You know, I don't want to give up on a season. I don't think anybody does, but there's some teams that you have to kind of like look in the mirror and say, you know what, we got bigger shit to fry right now than just next couple weeks. So, you know, protecting him is the thing, because I know he wants to play. Him injuring his elbow or, you know, dislocating it isn't the end of the world, especially the non-throwing arm. Yeah. And if the circumstances were different, I think you possibly could have seen him coming back this year. But I was talking to Dan earlier. I don't think it's a smart idea to bring him back, especially with, you know, him happening to hold the ball a little bit longer. And he should have been in at the end of at the beginning of the fourth quarter, 38-7.
It was mismanagement.
And I appreciate Dan Quinn for taking accountability. You know, you don't see that a lot of head coaches. They kind of try to put a cover over, you know, why that decision was made, or they feel like I need to play it safe because I don't want to feel like I'm throwing anybody on the bus, but he took accountability for it. And, you know, I respect a man who sits there and looks in the face of, you know, of discomfort and, you know, says what he needs to say. So
yeah, and I think to that point, that was one really important.
Yo, it needs to be a pause button, though, bro.
Repeat that again.
No, I don't think so. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, you're funny. Yeah, run that one back.
Run it back. Run it back, Turbo.
He said, "I beg your finest pardon, bro."
I don't even know what you said, to be honest.
Listen, you gotta realize that whenever Tim talks, I listen very, very close because he's
It's
always
his
going to say
facial expressions, bro. It's his facial expressions. Because I look over, I'm like, "Oh, no, that was bad, wasn't it?" All right, keep it going. Go ahead,
So
man.
yeah, I think looking at the whole picture, the biggest points for sure, Dan Quinn coming up and saying, "Hey, listen, I feel sick right now. This was a mistake," and he owned it. And looking at the comparisons, I think it's fair to say that Jayden Daniels, there should be concern about his injuries, right? This year, injured his hamstring, injured his knee, and now injured his elbow. I think it's fair to say the comparisons to RG3, I'm going to push back on a little bit just from the mainstream media, because RG3 also entered the NFL with an ACL tear from Baylor. So he already had that major knee surgery heading into the NFL. So I think it is fair for Commanders to feel concerned, because at the end of the day, anytime this guy is on the field, he is going to be a liability when it comes to injuries. And that's the fact. That is his play style. He is a skinny player. He is not 200 pounds. He is not a Josh Allen build. Any single time, even in his rookie year, anytime you get hit, it's like, oh, hold on.
Yeah.
Is he good? Like, he was getting walloped his rookie year. So I think it's fair to say, and I think the one concern I've got for Commanders fans is also, what is the future of your team as well? You went all in this year. You went out, you traded for Deebo Samuel. You went in and you traded for Laramie Tunsil. You gave up a ton of your draft picks, and now you're looking at it that this season's a wash, and you got to look to next year to where you don't have a ton of these young pieces that you can fully build around. So I like their team. I like their roster, but they're in a very tough division. And we'll obviously talk about one of the other teams in the division in a little bit in the show. But I am concerned for Commanders fans, and you just feel for them, because they headed into the season with expectations to be the divisional champions. That's what their expectation was. And now you're dealing with an injured quarterback and a team that's not going to make the playoffs.
You didn't bring Deebo Samuel, you know, in to be your number one receiver. You didn't expect Chris Moore to have the amount of playing time that he's had. And also, I don't think you expected Terry McLaurin, which I think would be another conversation for another day, about guys sitting out training camps and, you know, and OTAs and whatnot, not getting into football shape necessarily, not being able to react to certain game time situations. I think that causes for, you know, soft tissue injuries and whatnot. But I think more so from the perspective of the Commanders front office and also their fan base, I don't think the comparison of him to RG3 is necessarily about, you know, the injuries per se. I think it's about how you handle it afterward. I think about the cautiousness that you have to take as the head coach, as a training staff, as his manager / mom. What is best for him moving forward?
Yeah.
You know, don't laugh. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. And, you know,
I know,
she's going to be in his ear, and she's going to, you know, let him know that you don't want to ever say that a season is over. Like I said, for a couple of teams, you have to just deal with the reality of things. And at this point, they're dealing with two different injuries in RG3 and, you know, Jayden Daniels. ACL hanging on by a thread compared to, you know, a separated, you know, or dislocated elbow. They're different, but when injuries start to pile up, you just don't want to make the same decision that you made, you know, at that point in time with RG3, and then it turns around and it puts you into a whole nother, you want to know, half decade of just trying to find your guy because you put your main guy, your rising star, in front of a fucking moving bus. So you just play it safe and look at what you have going into next year and have a full catalyst, behind Jayden Daniels, so he doesn't have to hold the ball and he shouldn't be running read options. And like I said, Dan Quinn, he took accountability.
You can't take away his greatest one of his greatest.
No. I'm talking about at that moment.
Oh no,
hand the fucking ball off. Yeah. You shouldn't have been out there. But if you are, and I think Dan Quinn said that. I think Tunsil, Debo, Zach, and Jayden. I think that was going to be the last drive. But the NFL is not for long. Yep. It doesn't take too long to make a bad decision or for shit to go down a spiraling tube. Like, it just is what it is.
Yeah. At this point. I just like the final point I'll say on this is it's tough because there's players like this, like RG3, that they've got the potential to be franchise changing guys. But I believe that injuries are not necessarily preventable, but your play style leads you into more of these. And that's what concerns me about Jayden Daniels. And that's where I can kind of look to the RG3 comparison and say, hey, that guy was a franchise changing talent, but his play style was always going to lead him to being more susceptible to injuries. You just hope that Jayden can be smarter, because I think Jayden is a fantastic thrower of the football. So you just hope that he can be
and
smarter.
I don't think the injuries that he had this year were necessarily his fault per se. I mean, it doesn't take too much weight to snap an elbow, especially when the pressure is already being applied coming down.
That was bad.
It doesn't take a lot. But the injury in Dallas, that's just a freaky play as well. Yeah. You're in the pocket. That wasn't necessarily him, trying to escape or moving out of the pocket necessarily. It wasn't a broken play, but those type of things happen. But the injury to his knee, the sprained knee. Now that right there, those are plays that certain, veteran quarterbacks or guys who are now out of the league or not playing, Cam could tell him, sometimes it's okay to throw the ball away or to slide or to just get down. Like, you save yourself so you can be able to have longevity, because there is a life outside of this game, and it could have been way worse. So
I think the biggest thing I want to kind of tie it all together and wrap it up here is, you can't take away a player's greatest skill set and what makes them so dynamic, which is the ability, obviously, to throw the ball, but also to threaten defenses with the run game. And I feel like that's something you can't take out of Jayden Daniels' hands. From a protection standpoint, I think that's just the mismanagement of when he's in there, why he's in there, the plays that are called. We talk a lot about situational coaching on the show, and situational coaching is important. That goes down to the call and plays. Tim made a great point there. There should have never been a read option down 31-7 points when the game is in hand. Should never been that. Hand it off to the running back. You churn out yards, because I think Harbaugh said it best, and I think it was John. He said it best. He said, there's no play that's going to get you, 20 plus points, right? It's not like we're going to score. Absolutely. We're going to make up a 20 plus point deficit. So the best thing that we can do is work on the next play and look ahead towards next week. It's okay to wave the white flag in the National Football League, especially if we're talking about the health of your quarterback who has sustained injuries, who was, as of a week ago, returning to the lineup. So to me, I just thought it could have been a smarter game plan. I don't want to beat the coaching staff down about it too much, because I think it's a lot of trial and error in football, and I think there's a lot of emotions, and I think you're also, in a sense, trying to do what's in the best interest of your football team, but also with the player. And I'm sure, Dan Quinn's job is to be a football coach. Yeah. Right? Cliff Kingsbury's job is to be a football coach. They're not thinking, oh, well, he can get hurt here, because if you think with that mentality, chances are you probably won't have a lot of success in this league. So I get why they did what they did. But at the end of the day, I think it all makes sense. Listen, I want to keep the conversation rolling. If you guys do this huge favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or when we upload content. I want to move on to the Cowboys. Listen, the Dallas Cowboys went out there. Jerry Jones said he had something up his sleeve at the trade deadline. He didn't allow us to know exactly what that was. And when they traded for Logan Wilson, everybody's like, okay, they're just trading for Logan Wilson, from the Cincinnati Bengals. And we'll talk more about that. But then they had another blockbuster trade up his sleeve, and it was the acquisition of Quinnen Williams of the New York Jets. Quinnen Williams has been a disruptor on the defensive tackle position, and chair of the defensive line since he entered the league. He's truly been a game changer for so many reasons. And you think about it, this is a team that has now acquired Quinnen Williams and what's his name? I'm drawing a blank right now.
Wide receiver.
The defensive tackle from the Green Bay Packers,
Kenny Clark.
Kenny Clark. So now you have both of those guys in the fold here, and a Dallas Cowboys defense that was much maligned and dealing with so many, injuries, especially on the back end. You wonder now, will this thing start to look a little bit different? You wonder that now. They've got their linebacker, right? They're a guy that's going to probably be wearing the green dye. They've got 2 game-changing defensive tackles in Kenny Clark and now Quinnen Williams. Do you guys think that the Cowboys are ready to compete now? Because we know this offense could be special. We know that, right? We know this offense could be good, right? Dak Prescott was having a great season. Obviously, the Cardinals lost a little bit of a stain on the season. But do we now think, right, with everything now in place, the trade deadline's behind us, do we now think that this Dallas Cowboys team can truly compete with the pieces that they've added now via free agency? Daniel, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think that this is a 2-part thing for me. To be honest, first off, what I love the most is this is a roster that I'm very confident in 2026. This is a Super Bowl caliber roster. Not right now, and that's where it's tough because they only have 3 wins. They're in a division with the Philadelphia Eagles. But I am sold on what the Cowboys are doing for the future. I am completely sold. And maybe I'm buying too much into the Dallas Cowboys stock, but I look at what they've done. You win football in the trenches, right? And I've seen what they've done. They've poured assets into their offensive line. You got Tyler Smith at left guard. He's 24 years old. You got Cooper Beebe as their center, who's 24 years old. You got the right guard, who they just drafted, Tyler Booker. You got their left tackle, Tyler Guyton. They have put so much resources into the offensive line. And let's switch over to the defensive line. You got Quinnen Williams, who is a premier defensive lineman. Maybe he's not the best pass rusher right now, but that's why you also re-signed Osi Odigizua right next to him, who's one of the best 3 techs. You got Donovan Ezuraku, and you've got 2 first-round picks. Tim is not amused, apparently, but you got 2 first-round picks this year. And that's why I believe, and I'm bought in, because the Micah Parsons trade, yes, it happened, but this is a team that's setting themselves up for a Super Bowl run next year. You have the pieces in place. You have the 2-star wide receivers. You have the quarterback of your future. You've got some places you need some help. You need some secondary help. But this is a skeleton of a roster that I feel like, with Quinnen Williams, with Kenny Clark, with Osi Odigizua, with the offensive line, you have something to build around. And this offseason, you have 2 first-round picks that can make a huge addition to your team. So I don't think that they compete for a Super Bowl this year. I think that they can push for a playoff spot, maybe, but I think their secondary is too far gone right now. But I am such a fan of this move. And to be honest with you, I think that this move sets them up for a big season in 2026. I think they're Super Bowl contenders next year.
Fuck no.
Okay, let's hear it.
Kenny Clark, Quinnen Williams, that gives you the ability to reset the line of scrimmage, which is great. They're 29th in rush defense.
Yep.
They're 32nd in pass defense. You know who's down there? The Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
They're all in a shit show. And the question is, can they compete now? No, they cannot compete right now. With a great offense, I think that gives you chances to win games. You have the same formula as the Bengals have right now, which is we're going to have to outscore you, and hopefully there's not enough time on the clock.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They had a shootout with Russell Wilson and the Giants earlier in the season. They've had shootouts with the Denver Broncos. They've had shootouts with a couple of people where it's like, you know what? If we can't stop anybody, we can't catch up to anybody. Mm-hmm. And right now, that puts your offense in a bind where they have to damn near be perfect. The total defense is ranked 29th. And I think the addition of Quinnen Williams, I think that is for future endeavors. I think that's for Kenny Clark, who's only 30 years old, who's able to, have still 3 solid years of high quality play. I think you fortified your front, and with Logan Wilson being there, I think that brings leadership. Now, is he the 2021 Logan Wilson? I don't know. I haven't seen it this year, but then again, I don't think you could ever see his potential on how good of a player he can be with not having too much of a stout run defense up front, especially with defensive tackles in Cincy. And I think in the back end, he's put in a lot of binds, especially, covering backs out the backfield, tight ends. I think it kind of put him at mismatches that he wasn't really favored with. But all in all, this move was for the future, and now the Cowboys can focus their attention on the secondary. You want Diggs to come back healthy. Bland isn't a number one corner, but he does make plays. He's opportunistic, so you can work on that. But I think it does give you opportunity to play with some pieces going into the draft. Jerry Jones isn't afraid to pull the trigger on a lot of stuff, and I think, at least at this point, they are now knowing what they need going into the offseason, which is helping the secondary. But their biggest issue is third down efficiency, getting teams off the field. And I think that's the name of the game right now, especially with a bad defense, is to bend but don't break. But you're not only bending, you're snapping in fucking half. This isn't something where it can be sustainable for a whole year. You expect your offense to bail you out a lot of the times. I love Dak. I think he was on an MVP trajectory, earlier in the season. I wouldn't say that he's quite out of it, but also part of MVP is propelling your team to wins. Joe Burrow had this same kind of conversation. You have to damn near play perfect, and you are the quarterback. So losses go on your shoulders, wins go on your shoulders and your resume as well. So, no, they're not ready to compete this year, but what they've set themselves up with is being able to have a building block of a stout front seven. If they can go get another linebacker, free agency is not open to them, where they don't have to worry about that. And secondary, I think looking at safety would help them a whole lot. Just getting teams off the field is what they have the biggest issue with. I don't think it's the strategy of the defense. I don't think necessarily it's about. I think it's just players playing at this point. So not this year, but next year, I do agree. They could make a deep playoff push. Now, Super Bowl is a whole nother thing. You got teams who are stout, but
they haven't sniffed that in a while, but so we won't even talk about that. But one thing I'll say is, I look at their schedule, right? They've got a little bit of a tough schedule coming up to a degree, right? They've got the Raiders, they've got the Eagles, they've got the Lions. The thing about it, divisional matchups are always played a little bit tight. So, you wouldn't shock you if you saw a loss there, but got the Raiders coming up. They got the Raiders coming up off of their bye week. I feel like that's a winnable game for them.
Yeah.
The Philadelphia Eagles, we should say on paper the Philadelphia Eagles should win that game. But again, it's a divisional game. We could see it going the Cowboys' way. Yeah. Then you got the Kansas City Chiefs.
Are they in Arrowhead?
It is in Dallas. I'll be honest with you. I kind of like Dallas's chances in that game. I do. I think that if you can get a little bit healthy on the back end, I think the biggest thing for them is your defensive line could become a focal point to the point where, I think it can make life a little bit easier on the corners, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I think that they can win that game because I think they can provide a lot of pressure up front. However, I still think it's a tall ask, but I'm just trying to find winnable games for the Dallas Cowboys. I think that Detroit Lions game is going to be a little tough for them to win. Yeah. Right. I think the Vikings
talk about managing a front. Front. Yeah.
Then you have the Vikings, right?
Yeah.
And that's a game that could go either way because the Vikings are up and down and up and down and up and down. And you got the Chargers. This is the same Chargers team that we saw the Giants beat, right? Yeah. This is the more the pass happy.
That's one of those teams that are a question mark as well.
Exactly. Then you got the Commanders.
And then
you got the Commanders, and then you finish the season with the Giants.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm being honest with you. The Cowboys could sneak in.
Yep.
Yeah. The Cowboys could sneak in. Because I think that right now what you're hoping is you're hoping that they can get healthy. I think they're hoping that they can get healthy. And I think the acquisitions, I don't think that these moves that the Cowboys have made have been, hey, I don't think they have their eyes set on just next year. Yep. I think they're still focused on the here and now. These moves that they made right now weren't just next year's moves. These moves were made for the right now. Let's try and go out and win. Let's try to go out there and compete. And by God, I think that they could do that. I think they could do that.
Go ahead.
It's not a bad roster at all. And I agree. Their defense has been piss poor. We saw on national television, Jacoby Brissett crushed them, but as one of our commenters said, and they also, so they're getting back Siobhan Revel, and they're also getting back Demarion Overshown, who tore his ACL at the end of last year.
And getting Trayvon Diggs back as well.
Trayvon Diggs. This is a very talented team. And
when healthy.
When healthy. And I do think that the Quinnen Williams addition, while it's not in a nutshell a superstar player, we all know in order to make a secondary look better, you need to have a dominant defensive line. What is the best way to have a dominant defensive line right now? Out of pressure, a guy like Quinnen Williams into that defense. So I am very excited to see this team because while they have a major question mark at secondary, we have a lot of answers for this team right now. We have an answer at offensive line. We have an answer at wide receiver. We have an answer at talent at tight end. We have an answer now at talent at defensive line. We have an answer now at edge rusher where Donovan 𝗍𝗪𝗏 is coming on and looking like a first-round pick. You got 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗏 𝗠𝗠𝗓 who's looking very good. So I think as these injuries, as these guys get back, we'll know more. But I do agree with you, Malik. They have to start winning now, and it's not out of the realm of possibility.
And I think with Devin 𝗍𝗪𝗏 and Jadeveon being able playing that they have, one thing that they've done really well is set the edges. Now the issue that it's been has been when Kenny Clark is getting, you know, two-man pinned down, and you know you're having gashes up the middle for certain runs. Quinnen Williams, again, like I said earlier, resets the line of scrimmage, and he also can rush the passer. He's not, you know, top 5 or anything in that, but what he does is give the ability to have one-on-one opportunities for other guys, you know. And this also, I think, with Quinnen Williams helping in the rush defense, that might put guys, instead of gaining 4 or 5 yards for some teams on first down running the ball, that puts teams in situations where they do have to pass on third down, and getting healthy in the secondary at the right point in the season for against certain teams might favor you. And like you said, against Kansas City, I don't think that's just like a full-blown, you know, win now that I think about it.
Because their offense can compete with the Chiefs.
Yeah, and that's the name of the game, putting points on the board. If you can just get a couple of extra, you know, opportunities with the ball in your hands, I think at least keeping the other team's offense off the field bodes well in your favor. So could they compete to get into the playoffs? Sure. Super Bowl, no. Next year, adding in the draft, looking at free agency, adding certain pieces, you know, and really prioritizing the development of your young players, because their offensive line is young, and I think they're going to be stout next year. So I think they have a lot of positive things to work on, but I don't want to hear about the Cowboys all fucking off season again. I really fucking don't. ESPN was driving me nuts with that.
Listen, we'd be remiss to think that, and be naive also to think that they don't have some things they got to figure out. They got to figure out the George Pickens contract situation, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
They've got to figure out the key pieces that are
man
on this defense that are going to build them into the future. I think DaRon Bland needs to get back into the slot. I think that's where he's going to make a lot of his money at. But again, it's going to be one of those things we're going to continue to talk about, continue to cover, continue to give our opinions on. I thought these were some home run gets. I thought pairing Quinnen Williams up with Kenny Clark was because I'm going to be real with you. Donovan 𝗍𝗪𝗏 is going to be a very, very good player for them. And I think that they had their eyes on his development and what that could look like versus going out there trading for an edge rusher that we hadn't talked about. But Donovan 𝗍𝗪𝗏 being the beneficiary of guys like Kenny Clark and Quinnen Williams, I think is going to take his game to the next level.
And just one more thing, because I know we want to, you know, keep it pushing. I think also with adding Quinnen Williams, it's not as big of a hit to the pockets as it would have possibly been for, you know, keeping Micah Parsons. I don't want to compare the two, but what I do want to say is at this point in time, what you flipped that trade for Micah Parsons is now you've got 2 really good D tackles. You got a first-round pick and the ability to pay Tyler Smith, Bland, and Ferguson, and also have a little bit of cash to go ahead into free agency next year. And on top of that, you know, it's not all spent on one guy. Great guy. Don't get me wrong. Really fucking great guy.
See,
but at the same time, that you get to distribute it a little bit more in places that are holes, because right now your defense is historically bad right now.
See, I look at it a little bit differently. I think that for me, you know, I think that Micah Parsons is a very dynamic player. To me, there was a lot of him sitting out. There was a lot of plays taken off. There was a lot of teams can do a lot more to double and chip and do so many things to make life hectic for him. It's a little hard to do that to a guy like Quinnen Williams and a guy like Kenny Clark now. You got 2 brute forces in the middle of this defense that you hope is going to elevate everyone's game. Like right now, like I hate to bring up the Bengals right now because we're talking about the Dallas Cowboys, but I think the Bengals have better edge rushers than it might look. I just don't think that they have the talent on the interior of the defensive line to help show you that. because right now I feel like the play on the interior of the defensive line for the Bengals is meh, right? But I think with the Cowboys, I think you're going to be able to see everything that tracks and see how this thing looks, because they have two brute forces at the defensive tackle position that's going to allow freaks like Donovan Ezeraku to show off their game. It's going to allow guys like Jadeveon Clowney to show off their game. It's going to make life easier. That's my whole point. It's going to make life easier. And for me, I just feel like Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark is going to provide you a little, because they have the upside of rushing the passer themselves. And guess what? The one thing a quarterback hates in the National Football League is pressure up the middle.
Yeah.
A guy constantly pushing that pocket, constantly pushing that offensive lineman in their lap. And I think, again, man, I just think that I'm always a fan of getting two stout interior defensive linemen versus going out there paying a lot of edges, because you can easily block out an edge rusher unless you have a guy like Myles Garrett who can move every which way on the defensive line.
And that's what I was going to get to was, I think we're at a point where we understand this game is about matchups. On offense, you always try to look for a mismatch in the defense, you know, a linebacker versus, you know, a tight end, or, you know, a number 2 corner against, you know, possibly a T. Higgins. You're just looking for ways to get the ball in playmakers' hands, but that also goes on to defense as well. I think with you being able to have pieces that are versatile, I think that brings a lot. And with the conversation isn't about the Bengals, but at the same time, the Bengals can be brought up for a lot of shit. And with the idea of not having necessarily, I think it comes back to scheme. I think it comes back to not only being able to set the edge, but being able to have guys who are able to play multiple positions. I think the best ability is availability as well. And when you have certain guys who aren't really prone to having a lot of production, you know, with sacks, I think pressure does come up.
You know what I believe? I believe that a lot of guys that are pass rush specialists, like a Donovan Ezeraku, who really started to elevate his game his last year in Boston, I think that those guys are ultra talented. And I think you even saw him winning a lot, even just the other night. I think the thing is, there's a lot of talented edge rushers in the league, but they don't have complementary pieces on the interior defensive line to make their life easier, to help them with those one-on-one opportunities. And for a guy like Donovan Ezeraku, who was picked in the second round, who has the upside, who's shown flashes already, without those two both being in there, it's going to make his game go to the next level. And I genuinely believe that. But I want to keep the conversation rolling, guys. Give us thoughts on your on your thoughts in the comment section. While you're here as well, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live. Also, I want to start asking questions, answering questions again. So make sure you guys just drop some questions down in the comment section as we go. We'll try and answer them. I want to talk about another team that made a splash trade, probably the biggest trade. I know people try to treat it like it was a Luka Doncic being traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. It wasn't that. Yeah. It wasn't that. But the Colts gave up 2 first-round picks for the acquisition of Ahmad Sauce Gardner. I want to get you guys' thoughts on Sauce Gardner, and more so, are the Colts contenders now, right, with Sauce Gardner as their new shiny toy? Is Lou Arnold going to be able to make a championship team out of this team? Talk to me, Daniel. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is undoubtedly a championship level team. And first off, shout out to the GM. When it is time to go for it, you've got to go for it. And some may criticize, and I personally agree, I would not have probably given up 2 first-round picks. I think that the Jets probably got the better end of the deal, because 2 first-round picks is extremely valuable. But when you are in a position that you can potentially win a Super Bowl, that's what they believe, and that is where they are currently at, you've got to take advantage of it. Because what are you going to do? Are you going to wait till the offseason and figure out, is Daniel Jones the guy, and then draft this guy and draft this guy? No. You have a team that has 7 wins on the season right now, and you are ready to go now. So why the hell not? You have one real weakness on your team, and that is secondary. That is cornerback. So why the hell not go out and get a guy in Sauce Gardner? So for sure, the way I view it, I think that this team can compete. And the reason why I will say that they can compete is I look at the play style of this team, and I see that the teams, you know, in the past that have made it to AFC championship level games, you can go look at the Ryan Tannehill led Tennessee Titans. You can go look at the Mark Sanchez led New York Jets. You can go look at these teams that maybe weren't supposed to be there. The Blake Bortles led Jacksonville Jaguars. You can look at these teams that were in the AFC championship and say maybe they weren't supposed to be there, but the roster was great. And that is what the Colts have. They have a fantastic roster. You have a great offensive line. You have probably the best weapon room altogether in the NFL. Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman Jr., first-round Tyler Warren, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Downs in the slot. This is a team that has looked phenomenal this season. And why the hell are you going to push for a Super Bowl this season? So I think that they're obviously still a level behind the Chiefs, a level behind the Bills because of the pure quarterback play. But when you see the potential that this team has, when you see the talent, even on defense, 𝗦𝗡𝗢𝗏 has been balling. 6'7", DeForest Buckner has been balling. This team has the makings to give these legit championship level teams problems in the playoffs. So I think that the Jets got a great deal getting 2 first-round picks. But for the Colts, listen, what are those picks doing for you this season? They ain't doing anything. So go out and get a potential shutdown corner in Sauce Gardner. And I do think that this team is going to give teams legit problems in the playoffs. And shout out to Chris Ballard for going all in because they needed to go all in.
You strike while the iron's hot. At this point, I could give a damn about 2 first-round picks. If I know that I'm 29th in pass yards allowed and I'm 24th in yards allowed, and also on third down conversion rates, I'm ranked 29th at 44%. Those type of things bold into my mind when I say, you know what can I do at the trade deadline? And am I really worried about assets or am I really worried about winning? And sometimes it's okay to sell the farm. I mean, if the farm ends up producing more than I ever could have imagined, then shit, why not? Yeah. I'm sold on the Colts even before this trade, because I think they lost that game to the Pittsburgh Steelers because they didn't continue to run the ball. Your running back right now is and has been mentioned in MVP conversation. You keep running the ball, keep defenses unbalanced, and be able to have a play action game, because I think you have found your guy in Daniel Jones. Even if I say past this year, at least for another year, unless he has a really bad fall off. But where I'm at with the Colts are, you were bleeding in a certain area and you found a Band-Aid that could possibly be forever, at least for the next 4 years.
So at that point, it's not a Band-Aid, it's a stitch.
Yeah,
right.
And it's gonna and you hope that it heals really nice, doesn't turn to a keloid and something that people look at and like, what the fuck is that? No, I think Sauce Gardner, he has had issues in the past of pass interference, holding. You know, that's kind of been thrown around like, you know, he kind of uses the rules of the game to his advantage. That's what the fuck they're there for. I think, you know, cornerback is an art. And just as wide receiver, you try to find advantages, especially with something that's so, you know, tedious, you know, as far as that position on the field. It's very difficult. And if you're able to play even half of what you were, you know, the last 2 years, I think Sauce Gardner puts you at an advantage where now you're able to create more pressures.
Can we be honest about something?
Get more creative.
Just to simplify it.
What?
Sauce is a very good zone coverage corner. He's not a very good man-to-man coverage corner. To me, they gave up a lot for Sauce Gardner, who I think is a very good zone coverage corner, especially. But you know, that's what Louisiana asked for in his defense for the most part. His defense plays a lot of zone coverage. I
don't think you're asking too much of him to step up when he is in man, because you're paying him that. We gave up a lot for you. I expect you to perform to some degree. It's not saying that he can't play man. It's just that he's better at zone than he is at man. Now, he also has a defense that in the secondary has had issues, but they haven't had a number one corner. So they've had to basically play, you know, patchwork with what they had.
I agree.
And I like what now Sauce is able to bring, especially from the length perspective, from the ability to go and switch sides and match up with certain people. I've seen Sauce play the slot this year. So, you know, where there's a will, there's a way. And you at least, there are certain teams who have issues and they didn't prioritize the idea of fixing those, and they're going to wait till free agency or the offseason. But
you know what?
They did the shit now.
You know what nobody's talking about, though?
What?
Cole's going to get 𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗪 Ward back. Cole's going to get 𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 back, who's on injured reserve right now.
So you got two.
So now you have two guys, and I'm not saying 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 is a shutdown corner, but he's a damn good corner. He's a guy.
He's a great second. He's a great number two.
He's a one on many other teams. He was the one for the Colts, but the Colts had an injury there, so they had to make a move. But 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 Ward and Sauce Gardner there are now. You know what was going to happen, guys? teams are going to hold the ball a little bit longer. And this is when J.R. Ward
Pin
comes
your
back.
ears back and go hunt.
And then Latu, the guy that they
Pin
drafted,
your
we're
ears
expecting
back.
a lot from you. Now we're going to expect that this defensive line is going to start to feast and start to eat. Because guess what? They're forcing you to hold the ball a little longer. You know whose numbers I expect to look a little better too? Cam Bynum. Listen, these are guys that are going to be the beneficiary now of good pass rush. Opportunistic defense. And honestly, if there's anybody that's going to coach themselves into a head coaching job this offseason, 𝗦𝗦𝗢𝗏. 𝗦𝗦𝗢𝗏 is the biggest winner, right?
Yes.
Of free agency, because now he's got a defense. He's got pieces in place. They're going to allow him to do what he does best, right?
And you know
opportunistic defense, man.
And you know what pisses me off?
What's that?
Is that we sat here and made Lou the sacrificial lamb.
Not me.
And you know what? I appreciate that. Bengals Nation, it was never Lou. Players play, coaches coach. But you can't coach if you don't have the players that can make plays.
The biggest red flag, the biggest issue that he made, the biggest mistake that he made when he was here in Cincinnati was not playing the young guys sooner. And it's not because okay, he was vindicated by, obviously they haven't been playing well. It's just people didn't know what they had, right? So therefore, by you relying on older players, it made it seem like you were elected to play the young guys. But in actuality, you weren't playing the young guys because you know what you saw.
You knew what you had.
You knew what you saw. And you said, you know what? But I don't want to make it a pinpoint thing of, oh, you know, he wrong. Like it happened as water under the bridge. I want to talk about the job that he's going to be able to do with the Colts now, with the pieces that he's got, man. But listen, I think this is a really, really good teaching moment for the entire NFL. The Colts knew their offense was humming, right? Obviously, they had a hiccup against the Steelers, but they went out there and they said, you know what, we realized that our defense is, middle of the road, could be a lot better. Let's go out there and make some true upgrades. We don't care. Never mind that our coach is our head coach is an offensive-minded guy.
Yeah,
we're gonna go out there and we're gonna get our defensive coordinator the pieces he needs to succeed. Because that's what this tells me is they have an ownership group, right? The 𝗪𝗧𝗍's daughters who took over the family, obviously with the tragic passing of Jim. It shows me that they're willing to listen to all fronts on the staff, man. And I think that is so important. You need, like, when we talk about where a quarterback ends up is so important, right? Where a coach ends up is so important too, because that could be the difference of you having a lot of success or not having a lot of success. You want to be a part of an organization that's going to go out there and get you pieces that you ask for, not get you hand-me-downs, not get you leftover pieces, not get you scraps, and then expect you to make magic out of it. That's what this team has done. That's what 𝗪𝗏𝗪, right, and all of them have done. And it seems like they're fully committed to this season. I like your mentality, Tim. F them picks. Let's put let's put this team in the best position to compete now, because you never know what next year holds. The Colts don't know if a team is going to come calling for their defensive coordinator.
You weren't expecting to be in this.
They don't know if a team's going to come calling for their defensive coordinator next year. They don't know if an injury might happen next year that might take them out of the running. They don't know if a player is going to end up just retiring. They don't know if Quentin Nelson's going to say, you know what, I'm just done. I don't want to play anymore. You don't know. So you have to strike with the iron tie. You have to take advantage of these opportunities, because guess what? Like you said, for instance, the NFL is not for long league, but that's not just for player retirement. That's for teams being at the top. You do not know. You have to ask yourself this, right? Seriously, NFL organizations, ask yourself this. Why do teams like the Eagles, like the Chiefs, why do they stay contenders? Why do they stay at the top? They're constantly evolving. They're constantly looking for ways to get better. And people say, well, there's only one Philadelphia, or there's only one blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's giving your organization, whoever it is, a pass. Guess what? If you're committed to winning, you're going to try to do everything in your power. You're going to try to leave no stone unturned to make sure you're fielding a winning football team. A winning football team. Listen, there are so many teams around the league that if you have a glaring issue, you wouldn't let it go neglected for years and then say, hey, we're just going to build it to the draft, or we're going to because you're cheap. Guess what? That is putting your players not in the best position to be successful. That is putting your coaches not in the position to be successful. So I say all that to say, man, there are a lot of teams out there that could take note from what the Colts did, right? And our Colts haven't been necessarily at the top, but this tells me the Colts are tired of just relying on the draft. The Colts are tired of just being middle of the pack. They realize they're off to a hot start. They want to take advantage while the iron's hot. So you have to go out there and do that, man.
It's totally, you're right. And I think the biggest point too is just looking at, in order to have a successful team and even a successful defense, you need talent. And this Colts defense is talented. You have 𝗏𝗏𝗪 was a first-round pick, is talented. DeForest Buckner is a freak on the inside. You have 𝗦𝗢𝗙𝗧𝗏, who was a free agent. You got Cam Bynum, who was a free agent. 𝗕𝗏𝗡𝟐 Ward, who was a free agent. Now you go out and get Sauce Gardner. Talent matters so much. And when you compare this Colts defense now to other defenses in the league, you can tell the difference in pure caliber of talent. So when you have one side of the ball that is humming on offense,
right,
and you see a significant deficiency on your team, bro, go out and make a move, especially if you feel like you have a Super Bowl caliber team and a chance to actually win. And I think that, Malik, and you guys put it best, you never know when you're going to be back. So you got to go out and make the move.
And you know what's something that kind of like has been a thought for me for like maybe like the last 2 weeks? I did have that same question, Malik. Why is Philly so opportunistic? Why is Kansas City so opportunistic? And why do they stay at the top for so long? Because they understand game. And game is rated E for everyone. At this point, if you see something working, you can take heave to it and say, I can put my own spin on it. And right now, the Colts are 6th in points allowed, and they're ranked 8th in rush yards allowed. They know what their weakness is. With a lot of teams, you don't know what the hell is broke until you go get a diagnostics test. And then you see, oh, okay, I have more holes than what I thought. The Colts understand, if we bolster this up just a tad bit, we're going to put ourselves in position to win more games, because we can win the time of possession battle. We can win, you know, on the front line with almost any team in the NFL. And then on top of that, you have a quarterback who's making good decisions, a guy who's just not turning the ball over, except for last week. And I think that's because they got pass happy due to, you know, them feeling like, you know, we've really found a groove with our guy. But you have to stay with what works, while also taking chances and opportunities to bolster what is working. Things can always be better, but you don't want things to ever stay the same. You know what I'm saying? So at this point, yes, they are contenders with Sauce Gardner. To answer the question, you know, for all that fucking talking we did, I think we understand and we're all in agreement. Come the end of this year, Daniel Jones could very well still be in the MVP conversation. He could. Look, if you can ball once, you can ball again.
Listen,
and the Steelers defense isn't no fucking slouch, and I think they're hitting their you know, their stride. That could be a playoff matchup that could come back to be like, you know what, we could be talking about getting our popcorn ready, I think, honestly. But yeah,
well, you know, I think that the Colts are gonna. We'll see what the early returns are. I think they play in Berlin this week, right? So we'll see how that all looks. But if you guys do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content. Listen, I want to stay on the front of the trade deadline. One of our last topics of the day is winners and losers at the trade deadline. Danny, who were your winners and who were your losers?
Yeah, I've got a lot, but I think the immediate winner I look at, to be quite frank with you guys, one of them is the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's exactly what you guys were saying. This is a team that is opportunistic. This is a team that knows, hey, I'm already at the top. NFC East is mine. The Giants suck. The Commanders suck. The rest of the teams in the entire conference, you're not really confident in them. So what am I going to do? Am I going to stand pat with my team who looks good, who I have a great roster, or am I going to go out and make some moves? They added three guys actually, that I feel are going to be a big help to their team. First off, Jaelan Phillips is a major move. Jaelan Phillips was one of the most talented guys in his draft class, and he's looked good. He has been one of the better pass rushers this season on a terrible Miami Dolphins defense. So I look at what Phillips has done in Miami, and I see him going to a team like we talked about with a dominant interior. You got Jalen Carter, you got Jordan Davis, you have a very solid defense, and now you add a pass rusher who's going to get one-on-one opportunities. That's exactly how you can replace a guy like Josh Sweat. Moving it forward, you look at Jair Alexander, wasn't very good in Baltimore, but you made a move for him, and you gave up, what, a 6th-round pick for him?
Bag of chips.
So you give up a bag of chips for him, and you also got Michael Carter to help out at the cornerback position. So they entered the trade deadline with serious holes. You got Keely Ringo getting cooked. You got Dory Jackson getting cooked, and you made some moves that could potentially help your team. Shout out to Howie Roseman. Shout out to the Eagles. They are the best team in the NFC East. and they are definitely winners. One other team, I think, just switching to the other side, I think that is losers. I think the Saints are losers, to be honest. And I think the Saints are a dumpster fire. I think the Saints have a terrible next couple seasons ahead of them. For me, the part that frustrates me is they went out and they traded for a wide receiver in preseason, 𝗦𝗢𝗢𝗓𝗡 from the Broncos. They gave up a 4th-round pick. And you go out and you trade Rashid Shaheed for a 5th-rounder, a 4th and a 5th-rounder, a guy who is a very good wide receiver guy, albeit maybe they weren't going to re-sign him. He's a talented wide receiver. I just don't see the direction with this team. I know that they're probably going to draft a quarterback this year, but the direction, when I compare them, the Saints, to another team like the New York Jets, I think the Saints are a dumpster fire. And to be honest, I don't know if Kellen Moore can necessarily survive this season. So the Saints, specifically that Rashid Shaheed trade, I mean, getting a 5th-round pick back, it does nothing for me. The Saints were a major loser for me.
I think we have the same losers, honestly. I don't think I really looked at anyone else as necessarily a loser. Maybe the Jets, just because from a standpoint of, maybe you got some, cap off of your hands, but now you need to go find a number 1 corner. You need to now try to bolster your front line as far as on the defensive side. You have holes that you need to fill, but you did get some draft picks back.
You got Mozzie Smith. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, but keep it going. Now that's my loser. My winner, and I want to talk about this, and this is really where I'm gonna kind of like leave it for me, is again Rashid Shaheed to the Seahawks. I think now with Rashid Shaheed going to the Seahawks, and basically that play action offense has now opened up the middle of the field for AJ Barner. Arroyo is going to get more opportunities. That's going to take some guys out of the box and be able to let this offense be more creative than what it's already been. It's been efficient. The big plays will come. As my coach in high school used to say, you just have to be consistent. You have to have a defense know that in one area of the game they just can't stop you.
Right.
And now they're making it to a point where there's multiple areas where now we have to defend, and we might not have the speed with Shaheed being on the field to go ahead and cover that portion of the game. I also think that opens up a lot for Walker and is it Charbonnet? Charbonnet.
What'd you say?
I said Charbonnet. I don't know what the fuck I meant. And Charbonnet. I think that opens up the run game with Seattle's front line being as stout as they've been. They've done really good. They don't have a bunch of, main character players up on the offensive line, but what they do have is continuity. And I think that's working for a team hitting their stride at the right time of the year. And Rashid Shaheed possibly is going to make himself some more money, depending on how long he is in Seattle, which I don't think he would want to leave. But Jackson Smith-Njigba is on pace for almost 2,000 yards this year. That right there is going to open up a whole lot more for Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's licking his chops right now.
Yeah, shout out to the Seahawks. I'm a big fan of them. I think this was a match made in heaven. Offense coordinator Clint Kubiak is there. Makes perfect sense. And this is a team, they look good. They're 6-2, I believe, 6-3.
Mm-hmm.
They look good. So shout out to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the one thing I'll just kind of like tie it all up and say is, to your point about the Jets being losers, I don't know if I think the Jets are losers.
I think they're winners.
I think they're winners?
Yeah. And the reason why is because I feel like you bring in Aaron Glenn, who's never really had a true number 1 corner with Detroit. He was able to really have a makeshift defense in a lot of different ways, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I think he's relying on that again himself. I think he says, he did keep some pieces in place, but essentially you have a defensive-minded coach, a guy that puts defensive first. I wouldn't say put defense first, but I would say that he obviously that's his background, that's his base. I feel like he believes he can get the most out of the defense, even with the pieces. Now you have 5 first-round picks to work with going into the future, and honestly, that's what this looks like. I'm curious to see how the Quinn Williams move impacts him, because I feel like that's one piece I probably wouldn't have traded. But I understand the logic behind it, that he believes in his vision. He clearly has a vision of what he's going for. And we'll have to just wait and see how this whole thing shakes out, because it's clear that this Jets quote unquote rebuild is not going to be a 1-year thing, a 1-year turnaround. This is going to be something that he wants to be the head coach in Florham Park, right? For the long haul.
Yeah.
And I think we have to see it through. I think that there's clearly a vision of how they think that they're going to make this thing tick, man. That's just
I think he's looking at the recipe that was created in Detroit and saying, you know what, we can go into the draft and draft our guy on the defensive line that'll make an impact, and I can mold him the way that I want to. I think he also saw the opportunity that this year's shit.
Mm-hmm.
So what can we do to propel ourselves for the next 3-4 years?
Right.
Because I don't think he looks at himself as not the guy. I don't think anybody who walks in the door leading a group of men is like, you know what, I might be here for maybe a year or so. No.
Especially, I mean, you got the endorsement of the owner just in season as well.
Yes. And I think at this point now, that gives you also some playroom with those picks to possibly say, you know what, we could dangle this in front of a couple teams' faces and say, you know what, you can grab some of these picks in return. I need a primetime player. Possibly. That was so paused. And I just want to let y'all know that was crazy. That was OC. I swear to God. But y'all get what I'm saying, though. God damn. All right, go, man.
Just
What the fuck?
Just to finish on that, I think looking at the Jets, it's simple. Aaron Glenn has
actually today.
You guys are hilarious. Looking at the Jets, it's simple. Aaron Glenn has a ton of control with what they're doing, and you get 5 first round picks. It's amazing what they can do. And at the end of the day, too, Sauce Gardner and Quinn Williams, while they're great, you're wasting the prime over the next 2 seasons. So yeah.
Damn. I think that there is definitely a vision there for Aaron Glenn with the Jets, and I think that you make that move with the thought process, knowing you're going to be there, knowing Woody Johnson's going to see you through. Obviously, you were a coveted name. A lot of teams had interest in you for the job you did in Detroit, and now you look forward, right? You look forward with the Jets. You say, you know what, now we can build this thing. But I saw an interesting conversation take place between my friend Benjamin Albright and a few other people where they said, don't discount basically the Jets using some of those picks to go out and get a veteran quarterback.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I said earlier, the whole dangling thing. That was it right there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I guess it really depends on who that veteran quarterback might be, because it's clear they may be tired of drafting guys, or maybe they want a proven guy in here that they know they can potentially win with. Don't know who that is. I do not know who that is. I can't answer that for you, but I thought it was an interesting conversation that's starting to bubble up. And I think that's going to be a conversation that continues to start to take shape, as we start to sort of head forward and go from there. But at the end of the day, I think that getting multiple picks, I'll never argue with the team going out there, getting more draft picks, especially if you believe in your process. And one thing that's been proven is the Jets can draft defensive players. Yep. That is something that they have proven to be able to do. They've been proven to be able to draft defensive players. And we'll just have to see if they're able to get the most out of them. But you also feel like guys like Sauce Gardner, Quinn Williams are going to be finally in situations where they feel like they could potentially compete, because the Jets have dealt with a lot.
Speaking of quarterbacks, and you talk about veterans necessarily, but I also look at some of the guys who are backups, who are on the younger side, who have, I would say they're not shit yet. They've been looked at like Anthony Richardson. Are we completely done on him? Have we given up on the Anthony
for the
Richardson?
Jets? For the Jets, yeah.
I
wouldn't do that.
Okay, cool. Mac Jones, could you dangle a first or second? Not a first, but second or third round pick? No.
Mac Jones ain't worth that. Yeah. Not right now.
Especially with how he's played.
No, he ain't not worth that. You're not worth that. No. I'm just being honest with you, man. He's not worth that. He's on a 2-year deal. Kyle Shanahan has been clamoring. I think if anything, you probably I think Kyle Shanahan really likes the guy.
Joe Milton.
Yeah, it ain't worth it.
Not worth it.
Give up a third for him? No.
I think, and I hear where you're coming from. The only problem I have with that is I just don't know if they want to go the same route again. The reason why I say that, I think they tried with Fields.
Justin, okay. So he kind of ruined that.
And I think it could make sense, like other teams, but with the capital you have, you're either going out and you're getting a top tier quarterback like a Trevor, Kyler, or you're drafting a quarterback.
Listen, I want to wrap it up here, because we already know Kyler Murray had a soft benching. We'll talk more tomorrow about that in totality. But don't sleep. I know we talked about this team in length, and I feel like it's almost been a Cowboy show to a degree. But who's to say Dak Prescott isn't a team that the Jets go after long term? But again, I like talking about that. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. Listen, we want to thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode of the Sit Down Morning Show with Malik Wright. Make sure you guys do us a huge favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live, when we upload content from the TWSN studios. Remember, there's only one way you should be waking up, talking sports, enjoying your cup of coffee, debating with your friends, and that is the right way. We'll see you guys tomorrow for Fantasy Football Fridays.